Hey everyone, welcome to Powertime. Let's have a listen to what's on today's show. I think we're a long way from that journey, but I can see the vision right now. I can. And you also have to, like everything I look at right now, you've got to kind of wash over that. Well, what if it's 10 times better next year?
So where we had to spend a lot of time was really just reinforcing one that, you're already using us for a whole bunch of very secure things. So that's part of it. And then what guardrails that I guess I have to say nice things about Scott for the whole time.
You don't
100%.
You don't have to.
Things, please. Yeah.
That's not a rule. All right? In fact, we encourage you to say everything bad about Scott on this podcast.
Let's get into
It's
it.
power time. Get ready, let's go.
Hey everyone, welcome to Power Time. My name is Scott Meddings from Microsoft, and I'm joined here with Matt Noble from GetAI, a brand new startup. If those of you who haven't heard of GetAI before, you will as we move through this year at a blistering pace. Matt, how's the startup going in the new world of GetAI?
It's good. Sorry, for those who don't know, Scott's laughing at me because I'm laughing because the way Scott Meddings was that the way you said your name then was you never introduced yourself like that before. So
what was wrong with that? I thought it was a great intro.
It was good. It was good. But you caught me off guard. You just brought that energy, all right, which is good. But speaking of energy, GetAI, lots of energy there. I'm really, really enjoying being back in startup land. Kind of being able to control your own destiny and journey. And, when you're in a startup, your role changes from day to day. So you're doing different things and all that kind of stuff. But I think what I'm enjoying the most is working back on the front line with customers and, having those great conversations about how they're looking to adopt AI, adopt Copilot Studio, adopt other business applications technology. I think, because what we're seeing now is this big shift, and we always talk about it on Power Time, is this shift now that we're seeing. And we've described it, myself and you. I don't know if we've spoken about it on Power Time. It's almost as big as like the internet or as big as like cloud. And that's how I'm kind of seeing this agents sort of era or agent sort of future and stuff like that. So seeing some great use cases that a lot of organizations can actually adopt themselves based off some of the other conversations that we're having. So things like even like responding to RFPs, that's a common use case that a lot of organizations would benefit off. So creating an autonomous agent to grab an RFP document, rip that out, populate their own response template, populate the questions and answers, all of that type of stuff. I think there's a lot of value in that. But a whole shift of different agents, a whole shift of different autonomous IVR solutions, contact centers, all of this type of stuff. Yeah, I'm really, really excited for the future. So happy to field any questions, Scott. You want to drill down on me on GetAI? I'm here to respond. So
Yeah. I might do that. I think, at the end of the day, what's really hot right now, we're getting a lot of customer meetings around, how do we automate a whole bunch of processes that are manual today with autonomous agents?
Yeah,
So that's really interesting. And the more we drill into it, the more I think that's going to, have a long running effect on customers. I think we'll be talking about this for the next 2 or 3 years, because as the technology gets, and we talked about this before, right? Like, so we operated a Moore's law every 18 months. We'd see a doubling. Now we're operating at scaling laws. Every year we see a 10x increase in it. So that
18
continues.
days.
Yeah. So if that continues at that pace, then I can see autonomous agents, doing a lot of the heavy lifting on some of these manual processes, which is, really good thing in a lot of cases. I mean, if you think about it, like, think about health, right? So I'm a nurse. I've got 10,000 things I need to do at once. Someone gets ill with something, you hit a button and 10 agents go out and just do everything they need to get done, right?
Yeah.
So, in those kind of scenarios, I can see there's a lot of benefit and a lot of benefits to the human race. So it's going to be really exciting. And GetAI is going to be at the middle of it. So GetAI, what are you guys focusing on? What's your top technologies that you're talking to customers about on a daily basis?
I'll share a bit. There's a bit of we're trying to do sort of keep a bit up my sleeve. So contact center is really interesting to us. So for those who don't know, the two co-founders come from sort of a telephony contact center background.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting to us. And I think ever since our conversation with the wonderful J-Lo, Jennifer Lowry, who we interviewed, I'm actually catching up with her in a Teams meeting in the next couple of weeks as well to help present to one of our customers on a potential opportunity. Yeah. But ever since those conversations, I really kind of see the business case stacking up for CCaaS, for creating autonomous contact centers when you're talking to an AI agent, all of that kind of stuff. So that's really interesting to me, particularly because I was on the phone to a contact center yesterday, and I think, Scott, I was complaining to you about trying to transfer my car across from WA to New South Wales, and I was getting thrown in 44 different directions and getting transferred to all these queues, and no one knew the context, and I was pulling my hair out and all of that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of transformation that needs to go on in contact centers today. And, and when we peer under the hood, we see a lot of legacy and on-prem. I think that's the...
So to me, that's super exciting. So, and the technology is actually like phenomenal when it comes to that. Yeah, like you could point a Copilot Studio to a particular website and create a voice channel for that. And you can literally ask it questions on your website and it's going to respond to the answers based off that. Yeah, it's actually really easy to set up for something like a simplified scenario when it comes to that. So, yeah, I'm super excited about that space. Agents, obviously, is probably the next one. There's just so much happening. We've heard Sacha, we've heard Charles talk about this whole agentic future, agentic layer, all of that kind of stuff. I definitely kind of foresee that happening as well. But they've got to be the right process that you're looking to automate. But the technology is getting so much smarter, like Operator, with OpenAI, what happens with them and stuff like that, being able to create that more autonomous experience where you can go out and start booking and interacting with different websites and all of that kind of stuff. I just see this as a really big opportunity to transform the way that we all work. And that's something that I want to be a part of. It's really, really exciting. So yeah, they're the two that I would say would be 1A, 1B. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I think good areas of the business to focus on, really a lot of excitement around our customers around the contact center and autonomous agents, and they kind of go hand in hand. I think a lot of manual processes still sit in the realm of the contact center. So that's going to be really interesting.
And it's so easy to build agents as well. Like if I can build an agent, let me tell you, the rest of us can definitely build agents. I'm building agents almost every day. Yeah.
Hang on a minute. I think it's easy to build an agent when you want to just go and do a simple task. I think when you want to do a repetitive enterprise task that requires, connecting to different integrated systems and data governance and all that kind of stuff. I think at that level of expertise is where you guys really come into your own and being able to help corporates really define a strategy around governance and around how to, really have a deep understanding of what the agents are doing. So I think that's really important. And when you think about it as well, if you look at, the heritage that you've had in the past around Power Platform governance, there's a lot of customers around Australia that already have, utilized you and your team in the past to be able to do this stuff. So you got a lot of experience around that. And I think it's completely transferable into the new AI world, given that we're talking about the same platform.
I agree. I've been having some conversations on this concept of an AI COE, and I think we were probably the leader at creating COEs, at creating COE strategies at past organizations and stuff like that. And a lot of the patterns and a lot of the frameworks, a lot of the governance standards, implementations, guidelines, all that kind of stuff are really quite similar from what we're seeing. Obviously, there's that added layer of AI, Azure AI Foundry, all of this kind of stuff when it comes to the more complex AI scenarios. But the guiding principles of creating an AI COE is not too far different on some of the stuff that we've done in PowerPlat. And that's definitely what I'm seeing when it comes to a lot of this stuff. But I think that's another one as well. The whole concept of an AI COE is going to be key because people are going to start building agents because it's available in 365 Copilot, it's available in CPS. There's all these different interfaces where now you can build an agent. That's obviously Microsoft trying to push agents and all of this kind of stuff. They're trying to make it easier for people to build and consume agents and all this kind of stuff. So being able to control that, build it like a right governance framework, right environment with them, with the right connectors, all that kind of stuff that they can actually build this stuff out in is going to be key. Because otherwise they're just going to literally grab your customer data and start dumping it in all these public models, which is exactly what you don't want. Yeah. So you want to empower your workforce to basically build out and be able to innovate within a sort of a freedom in a framework is a good way to kind of describe it. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I kind of see GetAI as a trusted set of hands because a lot of customers are grappling with what you just said, the fear of letting, AI grab my data and do something with it. Is it going to be controlled? So you kind of need a safe pair of hands to deploy that governance. And of course, we've got Bert coming on the show in a week or two to talk
My
about
good buddy Bert.
AI COE, which you've been contributing to as well. So really having a good understanding of what we can roll out there and really improve the way that we govern these things. And I've spoken about it a lot on the podcast before as well. You don't want to be in a position 3 years from now where people have created thousands of agents and they've all left the building and you don't know what they're doing. Because, as the AI gets more intelligent, it can do more and more things. So you need to closely monitor what's going on. So, yeah.
I have an interesting story on that, actually. So I remember I was talking to a customer. I'm not going to mention name, obviously, but I was asking them, how they're using Power Platform, all this kind of stuff. And the answer was, no, not really. Then we turned on the COE. There was 800 Power Apps in the default environment that they had no idea about. So that was something that we obviously need to make aware, and deploying these toolkits that Microsoft make available to us is really critical, because then you're going down a whole path of remediation to your target state environment strategy, all of this type of stuff. Yeah, because obviously you've got to lock down that default environment, certain connector types, all of this type of stuff that you need to consider. But that shows you an example of, they didn't think they were using it that much, and we've turned it on and there's, a multitude of applications there. So and it's easier to build agents. It's actually easier to build agents than it is Power Apps. So it's going to be an interesting time. So
Yeah, and like many of the use cases that we would have sold Power Apps for in the past will now become, an agent, I think. And some of the use cases that were Power Apps might become an agentic Power App experience. So, a Power App with kind of Copilot built in. So you can use either the natural language interface or use a point and click kind of model. Of course, we had Julia on the podcast, on the last podcast, talking about a just-in-time agentic user interface build, which is, that's super interesting as well, if that's where we're moving to. So Copilot becomes the UI and then dynamically builds the widgets that it needs just in time to display the information in the right format.
Crazy.
Yeah, which, that's really interesting. We don't need to build a UI anymore. What does that look like? So that's, and does that help? I think one of the major problems that we've had over the years, and it's not just Dynamics, it's Salesforce, it's SAP, it's all the brands, right, is change management. You put a user in front of a screen, and if it takes 10 clicks to get anywhere, and historically the business users look at that and go, I don't want to use this. It's just too cumbersome, or it's too hard to get things done. So that's been really difficult. So it's like, we're going to roll out a CRM project, and then, we're going to roll out 6 months worth of change, videos, find champions. The amount of time and effort that goes into change to make sure people can actually use the interface is huge. It's actually a full practice.
Yeah.
I can see that kind of going away, right? Because natural language is the bridge to this, right? Now, I'm not saying that everyone's going to use the, a UI, and Copilot is the new UI for AI. That is the buzzword at the moment. But if we can be in a position where, they can use prompting, natural language, and it can bring up a business process inside of Copilot just in time when you need it, maybe that's going to help with this, right? Maybe that's a lot easier to do that than it is to open up another application. So I think we're a long way from that journey, but I can see the vision right now. I can. And you also have to, like everything I look at right now, you've got to kind of wash over that. Or what if it's 10 times better next year, 10 times better the year after? That's exciting, right? That speed.
Yeah,
So,
I definitely agree. The technology is only as good as the people using it. We are going with this shift of interacting with forms and fields to interacting with more agents, and it's a big shift. People are going to have to get used to using that. So again, I think this whole change management element is going to be key. But again, I agree that agents can actually help fast track that. And these agentic experience and natural language sort of experiences can definitely fast track that adoption of these technologies. So yeah, definitely something that we're looking at within GetAI as well is sort of that, because it is a big shift in the way that we work. So definitely front and center are those two sort of underlying pillars. Yeah. So the contact center and the agents, and then the underlying services to support that is governance framework, COE, change management adoption, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. That kind of support those implementations that we look to do. So yeah, it's exciting times, getting a lot of momentum, which is good. Yeah.
Of course, you guys don't have any legacy at all to deal with either, right? So it's just a end-to-end AI partner. Everything you do in the company is AI first, and
correct.
Everything that you deploy, it has a lens of AI on it.
So much so that we're actually building out our onboarding, offboarding, backup house, all that kind of stuff with agents. So we're going to live and breathe what we do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It also allows us to showcase to customers as well about the way that we're doing it. So we're currently trying to build out some of those processes and agents, obviously for benefits for us, because if we're selling this stuff to customers and we're not using it, that's almost hypocritical. Yeah. So, So we want to obviously automate and fast track the way that we do with the latest technologies to make us more efficient. But it's also cool to showcase this stuff to customers as well about how we do things and how they can benefit from some of that stuff, like an onboarding agent, common part. Yeah. Every organization would benefit from something like that. Yeah. So that's something that the team are currently working on now, which is super exciting. So yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. And of course, you guys are backed by Superloop as well, which is, one of the biggest telcos around at the moment too. So, I think it's a great, it's an awesome startup. So good luck with it, mate. I'm looking forward to working with you guys in the future and seeing, what you go and create. And of course, we need more partners in the ecosystem running AI first. We need CCAS is hot right now with a contact center. Contact centers in Australia, a lot of them are looking at refresh. So it's great timing from that point of view. And of course, a lot of our partners are leaning in to try and figure out how they need to, really support that ecosystem moving forward. So which is brand new to all of us, right? At times. So
agree. I think one of the areas where we see agents being a lot of benefits is within FSI, particularly. I don't know if you're seeing that within the conversations that you're having, Scott. I think FSI and agents go hand in hand. And like you said before, having the appropriate governance in these heavily regulated industries, particularly when it comes to autonomous agents and how that process works. I think it's a really interesting time. There's so much benefit that agents can have in, some of the manual processes, really complex processes. I mean, FSI, me and you've worked in large scale FSI organizations and stuff like that. And it's a different beast. There's a lot of rigor, risk adversity, all of that kind of stuff. What are you kind of seeing in that space?
Well, I definitely agree. I mean, if you step back a little bit, let's think about AI, right? Where is AI really well suited? It's suited to, we first launched it in coding, right? And the reason it works so well in coding is because it is a structured language that it can understand and then it can go and recreate. So AI loves structure, it loves data, it loves a predictable outcome, right? Won't go into hallucinations, but it can absorb that programming language, whatever that is, and then it can give you a result. Yeah. So if you take that out to the enterprise and customers and you go, what have we got that's kind of similar to that? It's regulated industry, right? So it's financial, it's government, it's health, it's all these things, right? Because they have a set of regulations that they need to adhere to, whether it's through APRA or whether it's through government legislation. And then they need to create things from that, or they need to approve things from that, or they need to, grab that information, disseminate it out to people, right? And so that's a really great use case because it gives a lot of grounding to AI. So what we're seeing these kind of Gov and FSI customers do go, well, we've got all this legislation over here. Can we ground it in that and then work out how we can help our frontline police, or how can we help our frontline nurses or our frontline fireys get their job done on a day-to-day basis that have to weave through this, legislation. I mean, in FSI, it's like, how can we make sure that our calls are compliant? How can we make sure that, the people in the contact center, when they're talking to people, are prompting with the correct information to make onboarding faster, their jobs easier, all of these things. So these industries are really, I think, going to be early adopters of, it sounds strange, Gov, early adopter. I'm probably happy to get corrected by our guests that are coming on in a few minutes. But I think these industries are really well suited to AI, believe it or not. And I think, once they walk through the door, or once they get the governance and security set up, I think they'll see a lot of optimization. That's my gut feel. Which brings us on to our guests today. So we've brought onto the show today people that are on the ground, immersed in these two industries, both FSI and Gov and health and government. And one is my colleague, Iwan Prajogo, who looks after all of the technical people that align.
He's also Powertime's number one fan, by the way.
He is, first to share it.
I'll annoy him with that.
Longhorn fan, yeah. So
number one Powertime guy. He was listening to on the car. He won. So thank you again. So,
yeah. So, so I think he's a great person to get a point of view on what, how is the rollout end up going? And then Lee Marshall from my team we've brought on as well, because he's 20 years FSI. He's worked a lot of years across Salesforce, a lot of years across Microsoft, got a great experience. But these are people that are on the ground talking to customers every day, which we really like, right? I love getting guests on that are actually in the trenches and going, how do we roll this out? I mean, Lee rolled out Copilot Studio to one of the largest banks in Australia. So, a lot of experience around that. So happy to have the boys come on and really have a chat about this. It's going to be a great conversation. Yeah.
I think me and you spoke the other day, we expect more customers on Powertime. We've been getting a lot of Microsoft product and stuff like that, but we want to start sharing some customer stories, customer experiences, all of that.
Yes.
So, we're lining up a suite of guests to come share their more customer journeys. So for those listening, expect some more content when it comes to that. We want to kind of pick and unwind and really delve deep into how customers are going with adopting AI and all of that kind of stuff. But Lee and Iwan are going to be a great starting point because they have been working on some customer implementations. I think it might be time to bring them on, Scott. What do you reckon?
Yeah, let's keep it real. Let's bring in the people that are dealing with these customers on a day-to-day basis. So let's get into it. Can't wait to hear from the boys. Hey everyone, welcome back to Power Time. I'm joined here with two very special guests today, Lee Marshall and Iwan Prajogo, who I've worked with for a very long time. I might hand it over to the boys to give a bit of an introduction on their careers, which is really, really extensive. So Matt and I have been really looking forward to this podcast. Iwan and Lee have contributed a lot to the tech, community for years and years now. A lot of people know Iwan and a lot of people know Lee. So it's awesome to have them on board to talk about the contact center and Copilot Studio and where we're at in FSI Gov. But Lee, maybe I'll hand it over to you first. Quick intro, who you are, what you do, and, maybe one thing about you might want to share that we don't know. Go for it.
Okay. Where do I start? So, obviously Lee Marshall. I'm based in sunny Melbourne. I've been at Microsoft just over 3 years now. Actually, my anniversary ticked over in January. I'm part of Scott's team, full disclosure. So I guess I have to say nice things about Scott for the whole time on this podcast.
100%.
100%, please.
That's not a rule. In fact, we encourage you to say everything bad about Scott on this podcast. All right, that's totally fine. Totally fine.
There might be some CLMs because Microsoft loves acronyms. So there might be some CLMs. I've been at Microsoft just over 3 years in Scott's team. So my focus is on financial services, in particular business applications at Microsoft. So I kind of cover the gamut, really, business applications, sales, some service, how in terms of Copilot and Power Platform, etc. My background, I mean, look, I know I don't look it, but probably 35 odd years in IT, starting in insurance actually, and then in banking, and then moving into consulting with vendor and then PwC and others. So I'm very focused on financial services pretty much for the entire time I've been working. Before joining Microsoft, I was 14 years at Salesforce, again with a financial services kind of flavor, but did a lot of cross-industry and government work, state, local government as well. Originally from the UK, moved to New Zealand, and then now based in beautiful Melbourne.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Lee. Iwan, over to you, mate.
Yeah, so I had to whip out the calculator and I worked out that I actually have 30 years of experience in IT, and unlike Lee, I definitely look it, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and never add it up, mate. Just go with
Definitely
make it
look
up.
it. So
add it up.
let's see. I've worked in Oracle and ecosystem, spent a bit of time in Merrill Lynch, Hong Kong as well. And I spent 10 years in SAP before I joined Microsoft in October 2019. I've worked and lived in Indonesia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and now Australia since 2011. And yeah, so my job in Microsoft is I'm basically, I don't know which one of us is evil twin, but I'm Scott's counterpart in public sector. We look after technical specialists that look after Dynamics and a bit of Power Platform for Australia. And something that people don't know about me. Okay, I got one. I can program in Java, but I can actually speak Javanese, the language. So two flavors of Japanese, Western Japanese and Central Japanese. So yeah, cannot monetize that very much, I'm afraid. But yeah, there you go.
Iwan also likes chilies a lot, right? So every time we go out for dinner, he brings his own personal chilies with him.
Unlike Tim Knox, shout out to Tim Knox. If the heat goes up 1 degree, that's it. Like he's out. All right, any hot food in Tim.
I'm working on him. I'm working. on him. So yeah, come around.
Oh, good.
So we brought
Actually, I forgot the one thing. Scott.
Oh, okay, go give it to us. Lee, what do you got?
Yeah, look, my career was never meant to be IT. In fact, before leaving the UK, I actually applied to join the British Navy. So that was
It's amazing.
That was going to be my career. Believe it or not, as a submariner. And funnily enough, the recruiter kind of looked at me sideways and went, "You're 16, you've got no life experience, and you want to spend your life on a submarine with a whole bunch of grown men." And funnily enough, they didn't accept me at that point.
Well, we're glad you're here.
We'll just call you the captain now, mate. The captain. You can be the captain of this ship. How's that? No, so we brought you guys on today to really talk a lot about what's changing in financial services and gov and how they're reacting to AI. So a bit of background on Lee. He was instrumental in one of the largest Copilot Studio deals we've ever done across large financial institutions, went out to millions and millions of customers. So he's got a lot of experience around that. Ewan's been in gov for a long time as well. So maybe I'll kick off the first question, and Matt, maybe you can do the next one. So I might direct that to Iwan. Iwan, AI in gov, right? Like obviously we're on the EC team, so I know we're crazy busy right now, and it's really going crazy around particularly Copilot Studio and CCAS right now are our two biggest workloads, I would say. How is gov, or the real world, right, on the ground, how are they going?
Yeah. Well,
I
look after public sector in Microsoft encompasses gov, education, especially higher education, as well as healthcare. So if I look at it from just speaking very categorically, healthcare and education seems to be less reluctant to pick up AI for understandable reasons, right? Because especially for healthcare now, it's actually quite commonplace for us to actually talk to a customer about automating some of the more menial tasks. For example, hand over notes between shifts at the hospital for the nurse, right? That normally takes half an hour for people. People literally write them by hand, right? That saves them 30 minutes a day for a single nurse. And that, adding up over a month, over a year, that's actually amazing. And of course, education, because you have to embrace AI, get your students to understand how to survive in this modern world, right? Gov is understandably a little bit more reluctant to that, but for completely understandable reasons. Because, of course, the Australian government that I work with, holds the personal information of every single one of us, right? So they are the guardians of it, and they feel a very, very strong sense of duty for that. So I completely get where they're coming from. But even then, they are now starting to come around because they see the value of, if you actually enable Copilot in a lot of the government departments to make sure that you actually can process the paperwork, and there's a lot of paperwork in government, and make it a bit easier, make it digitized, create summaries instead of having to handwrite everything, they start to see the value of that. But they're just moving very carefully because it's almost like they're trying to transport a pot of gold from one side of the island to another, right? And it's a very precious pot of gold. They cannot let that pot of gold spill. So I don't know how you easy guys travel because, you move hard and fast, just spewing gold everywhere. Maybe that's a bit easier, but I sort of get the
I wish it was that
I
easy.
know,
but yeah.
I'm making gross stereotypes here, but, I understand. And the important part of it is that Microsoft empathizes with them. And then we're there for the journey, right? Because you are dealing with something which is precious, which is your citizens' information. And they give us so much trust that we cannot betray that trust. So that's why they'll get there. They move at their own pace, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense, I think. And, we to be honest, we want the regulated bodies to probably move slower than most. So we make sure our data's protected, right? So, yeah.
Question for Lee. I understand how long it takes to get sort of technology platforms approved, particularly in FSI. They're so risk adverse, all of that kind of stuff. And AI would have been probably taken up another notch when it comes to security and all of that kind of stuff. What was it like going through that, and how did you go about that educational piece when it came to enabling and discussing Copilot Studio, and first off, making sure that it was risk adverse, it was compliant, all of this kind of stuff? It takes a lot of conversations. I remember back in the day, me and Scott I can't even remember how many conversations we've had on governance and security when it came to Power Platform. I can imagine AI being even, more with flashlight on and under the microscope. Yeah. So talk us through that journey and what was that like with the educational piece?
Yeah, sure. So, it was interesting what Iwan was saying because, there's this perception that I think in certainly on my side of the fence that, things move really fast and really dynamic and everything else. But the reality is I operate in probably one of, if not the most regulated environments on the planet, right? Because, we talk about citizen data in government, but financial data in FSI is almost, in some ways, it's even more critical to people, And so I think Microsoft do have one major advantage, and that is that we're, by and large, a fairly trusted identity inside of most organizations around the world. We're running, in some cases, some critical infrastructure, or we're already known to people. So that is advantageous. However, when it comes to AI, and let's face it, it's still relatively new. We're kind of almost seeing it. This is a ubiquitous technology in the world now, but a year, 2 years ago, like even 2 years ago, probably won't even talk. Nobody knew about it, right? And so where we had to spend a lot of time was really just reinforcing one that you're already using us for a whole bunch of very secure things. So that's part of it. And then what guardrails that we put in place as a company to protect data and at the end of the day, customers' data is their data. We don't own it; they own it, right? But what do we intrinsically do when we deliver service to ensure that it's secure and safe? And then how do, in the case of for example, a bank, how do they put extra guardrails that not only keep the regulator happy, but also their internal risk? And that's the thing that people sometimes forget too, is it's not just the regulator, that the banks have their own internal, and other financial services have their own internal risk teams who are actually sometimes even more stringent than the regulator, right? And so I guess it's a conversation of what guardrails do we put in place, what additional controls can they put in place. In some cases, we've had to actually make changes to product to harden certain parts of infrastructure or the solution to their needs. But again, I think that's one of the, I'm sorry, I don't want to turn this into just a Microsoft thing, but one of the wonderful things about Microsoft is that we can do some of that engineering with companies, and certainly the large banks, to ensure that their needs are met. But if I may say, the benefits of delivering this type of technology, and I think Iwan, if I talk about citizen engagement in government and the lack of potentially the lack of resources. Sometimes taxpayers don't want to, pay more, but at the end of the day, the service. I think there's a lot of parallels between the two worlds in terms of what we can get from this, right?
Absolutely.
So, it's like anything. You got to be consultative, you got to be empathetic, and you got to listen, and then really lean into the conversation and don't take anything for granted.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what a customer wants is what the customer wants. So you got to just lean into that and try and deliver.
I think just to build on what Lee said, it's not just at the moment people, Gov, FSI, all industries, they're still trying to think about how AI can replace what humans are doing right now. But what we are starting to see is that people are starting to get new ideas. What else can people do now they got the AI? That is the next level. That is when we're actually going to be. Right now, people are panicking because, oh my God, AI is going to take my job. But, that actually happened multiple times in history, right? And when you talk about, imagine what happened with the printing press, the invention of the internal combustion engine and all that. We're still here. Yes, there are changes society that needs to be made, but ultimately, the human race advanced because of all the technology. What's happening right now is that imagine we are a blacksmith in a remote medieval village, and we've been hammering away at our anvil, making swords, blows, and all that, and then we get handed an arc welder. Now, all the blacksmith knows that, imagine how many horseshoes I can make with that arc welder, right? I don't think we as a blacksmith will learn how to use the arc welder to do amazing things. We'll get there, but I think we're just thinking, how many horseshoes can we make with this? But once we actually understand what else we can do with the welder, just watch. I think Satya Nadella said that the real value of AI is we actually see real economic growth. It's not about technology. It's not about all the benchmarks. I think he said that 10% economic growth is something that he would deem a success. And I think if we do this right, if we play this right, we can definitely get there. But it's just unlocking that next level by looking for new ways to use AI. Sorry if I just turned into the diatribe.
No, we love it.
Yeah, pretty good one, because I know Scott likes a nice arc welder, so maybe
yeah, I do actually. I do. I recently bought a new.
Very handy on the tools.
I did. I recently bought a new 4-in-1 MIG welder, so it's very good. So I've never tried TIG welding, so I'm about to try that soon. So yeah.
Sorry, I just wandered into the welding podcast here by mistake, but yeah.
But I mean, you guys make some really good points. One of the things I think that has really changed in the way that we deliver in pre-sales and with customers at the moment is I feel like, and that customers are pushing the boundaries when kind of AI dropped and it's like, we have to have it. And Lee, your kind of, I guess, approach to this, as was mine, was we don't deploy to the enterprise until it's N-1, right? Like you want releases to have come out and be tested in the smaller markets, and then we take it to enterprise. We've seen that just flip now. Like we've got enterprises going, and we don't care if it's right or not quite working. We want to take it into prod, and then we'll work with you in engineering to kind of get it right over that deployment cycle, which puts a lot of pressure on all of us to try and get the technology out there. But it also means that stuff's launching quickly. Lee, you lived that last year, right? Like that was your story. How's the adjustment been like, compared to 10 years ago to now, like this cutting edge kind of delivery?
Well, there's a reason I don't have any hair anymore. I had a full head last year. So,
wait a minute, I've got all my hair. I don't know what happened wrong there.
Yeah, it's interesting, Scott, because I think what you're saying is true to a degree, but also it depends who you're talking to, right? Like there's still organizations out there who I think are very risk averse and who aren't actually leaning into this as quickly as I think perhaps they should be. I've always been this kind of advocate of what I call kind of two-speed IT. I think in many ways you've got to be experimenting, right? And now whether you experiment in prod or experiment otherwise, it's it's up to the individual company to decide where their risk sits and everything else. But I think there's something that all and government same thing, right? It's like in some ways you can't ignore this, but if you're not necessarily comfortable with sort of just throwing it out there, then you still need that kind of, you need people in your organization doing this, right? Experimenting. And maybe it's, you do it internally first before you then, if you don't feel comfortable exposing out to the public. But I mean, with any technology, there's always a leap of faith, right? It doesn't matter if it's brand new or not. If you're kind of handing over a semblance of control to something, there's a leap of faith in that. But I would say that there are some organizations who like being on the bleeding edge and just embrace that. And I think that's fantastic. And there's others that don't. But I would say fundamentally, we cannot ignore progress. And therefore, you need to embrace that in some shape or form. It's up to your comfort level, obviously, where you take that. But I think any organization today that's not embracing technology and at least doing something embryonic, experimental, or whatever, there's a danger that, they get left behind. I think where we've seen the shift with AI is that people have realized the potential power of this technology to remove what I call human glue, right? And this, to Iwan's point, is not about replacing people. We talk about the knowledge economy, right? All of us have a brain. Our brain shouldn't be taken up with copying data out of a spreadsheet and rekeying it into another system, or worse still, and this still goes on today, it's paper, right? Transposing that and entering it into a system of record, right? Like, why are we still doing that in 2025? And sorry, anybody's listening to this, I don't want to cause offense, but this is where the technology can give us the advantages, where my workforce now spends their time doing meaningful, useful tasks and potentially even innovating because they're not burdened by, the routine or the mandatory things that we can automate. And so again, I just think if you're not comfortable embracing, this technology in its kind of fullest and all possibilities, then focus on those little sort of menial things that I can automate and start there, right? And I think our role in pre-sales is to help them on that journey, to be consultative, as I said. Where's your problem? Where can we help you? And not necessarily just rush in with, the latest and greatest, and you can solve all world war and peace, with this technologies. You got to see where people are on the spectrum and just, lean into that.
Just to add to what you said, Lee, talking about the spectrum, since I'm dealing with gov and public sector, where, the spectrum is pretty wide. On the left side, we have people who are actually implementing Copilot in organizations. And on the right side, we have people who still use fax machines, right? So I think the adoption is going to be there, but there will always be a section of the population who will be wanting to do things the old way, because, humans, old habits die hard. It will not be an overnight change. For those people who are listening out there, it's not going to be overnight. There will be early adopters. There will be people who's going to be enjoying the hype curve. But there'll be always a percentage of people who will want to do things the old way until they get convinced, right? So, yeah.
Well, our lizard brains resist change, right? Because change is risk ultimately. And then sometimes it is difficult to, and to be honest, sometimes I'm in that same camp, right? I'm kind of like, I just want to go easy on this because ultimately I want to make sure I get the right outcome for the customers. But I will say, you're a gov. I think the Australian government is
absolutely
quite forward thinking actually about their embracing of AI. I mean, don't want to get this into a political discussion, but the current government has really leaned into thinking about AI, help us as a nation, and so. But again, you got to run this at your own pace.
So Lee and I were at a meeting yesterday, and we're presenting a lot now about agentic processes and how they can really optimize a business. And I think we were probably in the meeting for 2 hours, and I think it was an hour and kind of 45 minutes before the penny dropped for the people we were presenting to, where they went, wow, this technology is going to change the world. SaaS probably is not going to be a thing in the future, and Copilot is the UI for AI, right? And I was amazed, like, when that penny kind of dropped. What happened was the the people in the room just went, wow, here's 10,000 things we can do with this stuff, right? When people really understand it, and extracting value and being able to, automate these processes. I would think in like governance, the excitement of a large language model is one thing, but these autonomous processes, where if a nurse is in an emergency, it'll go and do 10 things for her that she doesn't have to do today, so she can focus on the patient. Or if a doctor, hits the red button, it'll automatically do stuff. That's got to be exciting.
In your field. Absolutely. So, okay, let me see in this call. Lee, you're probably old enough to remember when client-server software became such a new thing, right?
Mate, I remember the first PC.
There you go. I said it. Apple II, a 16K RAM. That's my first PC. Anyway, rapidly edging myself here. But what's important, right, in those times when people switch from mainframe to client-server software and then move to the cloud and so on, one thing remains constant, and that is the business requirements are there. Whatever it is that how we do it, it's secondary to how we can actually achieve the business requirement. We are in the middle of such a shift at the moment because, yes, to your point, Scott, the traditional ways of looking at the business requirement and then designing a database with a fixed application on top of it, you probably need consulting to actually change. That's probably on its way out, right? But the business requirement of patients needing to be served properly, citizens needing to file their paperwork and for their permits whatsoever, and students needing to get educated, that stays. Now, how we approach it is going to be fundamentally different because we are now going to be thinking in terms of independent agents doing the work instead of humans coming in and having to manually enter the data themselves, so writing interfaces to APIs. But the business requirement stays, right? And since the business requirement stays, I think there will still be plenty of space for the human intelligence to be in there, right? It's just that how we deliver that from a technology standpoint, it's going to shift. Yeah, but I think that's what people try not to forget, that it is still a human requirement. AI is to be used there as a tool, and how we actually use it, I think that's the exciting part. That's what's going to happen in the next chapter.
And I think what's really interesting on that is what AI is fundamentally changing for us is how we consume.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Right. I think one of the things that with some of the newer technologies is, there are teams out there still building like reports and dashboards, and we all know that as soon as you release that dashboard, pretty much it's out of date day one, right? And Matt, I know you're in delivery, so this is like preaching to the converted for you. And the problem with building reports and dashboards, you got to know what you want out of the report and dashboard before you even build it, right? And so the ability to actually ask questions of data in real time and the insights that can deliver to you as a human, that is even, again, and that's quite a simple example when you think about it, but the ability to actually get rid of static reports and dashboards and now actually look at my data estate and actually ask questions of my data estate and get answers from that. And for the way that we consume that to change based on how the AI's interpretation of what we're asking and its data sources available to it. Very simple example, but that is game changing. Just that, right? And then you extrapolate that out and start to think about, well, actually, how do we start to apply AI to insight gathering, but also then what we do with that insight? And that's the next kind of piece in the puzzle. It's one thing to consume and see insights, but then to actually start to look at, well, when I have an insight, what do I do with that?
Yeah.
Right.
This is what we unpacked with Julie as well. It sounds like Project Sophia, what you're talking about. Yeah, being able to natural language query over a data set and then have actual insights that you can actually pass off to your agents. But I think this is all really topical. Iwan and me were very lucky. We had the wonderful Sanya Singh come out to Australia, and she was talking about this whole concept of the new automation mindsets. You, like Iwan said, getting through a business requirement, but not just chucking AI at stuff for the sake of it. Yeah, still understanding what that process can do, and does the work need to exist? Can it be simplified? Can it be automated? And then can AI help this process? Yes. Again, going to the crux of the business process and business problem soon. I think as consultants, we get it, but I think having that educational piece to end users and end customers, because originally what we saw from customers when I was at obviously to work for a partner was just chuck AI at it. It's a silver bullet that's going to solve all of my problems. And I'm like, no. Slow down here for a second. You still got to focus on the business problem at hand. Yes. I'm starting to see that shift as well, where customers are finally getting it. They're seeing it as another technology stack that can solve their problems, which before 12 months ago, it was, just turn it on, let's go. Like, you know what I mean? What's this magical AI thing?
We have to learn how to use
all my problems.
We have to learn how to use the arc welder properly, not just chuck it at the nearest piece of metal. Right? So,
You know what's really interesting, right? Like, and shout out to Mandy. Mandy and I had a great conversation about this week. Is that the role of us is different now, right? If you think in 3 years' time that your technical depth is going to help you in this industry, I think you're kidding yourself, right?
Business
customers
process,
will be
problem.
That's you're bang on. That's where I was going with this, right? Like if you're going to a customer today and go, hey, let me show you how to configure Copilot Studio level 600, right? The customer's not, they can probably just go to, a chat AI anything and ask that question. It'll probably deliver it and probably create a video tutorial for them. And then on top of that, it'll probably then do a podcast on the topic, right? Like,
so we're out of a job. You're saying that we're out of a job. AI is going to take.
See you guys.
Hang on.
Well,
Matt, won't need any blacksmiths.
Matt, you're out, but everyone else is in, right? Like, I think so. I think the role of what we do as kind of technical architects is to have industry expertise, go in and really help a customer understand these processes, and then work out, lastly, what is the appropriate technology
100%.
to help them automate that process. So I think we all raise up a level rather than getting into that kind of technical depth all the time. And I think that's where customers are going to unlock. We always talk about unlocks. I think the unlock for the customer is business value, solving business processes. And like I said in the medical example before, Iwan, like really being able to help people with their jobs. If you look at Customer Zero, when we had Jen on the show, she spoke a lot about the agents in the contact center are happier, which makes the customers happier. They got access to information. They can onboard people faster. Now, I look at that and I go, we've got an opportunity here to make a lot of employees work a lot easier than it is today. And more effective with that AI assistant kind of thing. So sure you must be seeing this as well, Iwan.
Yep. Before I answer that, massive shout out to Jennifer Lowry, my fellow home.
J-Lo. Big fan.
So that presentation, like that she delivered on Customer Zero, and for those on the podcast might be listening for the first time, if you go back, I think it's 3 podcasts ago, Matt will probably correct me, but we interviewed...
Coming late for breakfast, Scott, let alone for 3 podcasts ago. What are we talking about here? So
we interviewed the Customer Zero team. So the Customer Zero team is the people that own the contact center were the first in the world to deliver AI and on track to save nearly $1 billion.
That actually is just proof that, no matter what industry, gov, healthcare, banking, whatever, you have to remember, I know we're all technology nerds in this podcast here, and a lot of people who are listening to this, technology is a means to an end. To make a real impact, you need to understand what is the business impact. Like, why is the Customer Zero story by Jennifer and her team so compelling? Because it actually delivers real benefit to the agents, to customer service agents, and to humans, right? It's not enough for it to be a cool technology, right? Because for me, ChatGPT, it's a useful toy when we actually first come out. Hey, I can talk to my machine. This is before Copilot came out, right? And I started to play with it, but the real value of it doesn't land with me until my daughter had a problem. She had to go for a CT scan, and I actually got the result back. The result was not in English. It was medical jargonese. I have no idea what it says. I fed it into the ChatGPT. I told it, explain to me in simple English like a high school graduate can. And it did. It told me my daughter's going to be okay. That is the value for me. I was like, that's when I was like, oh, this is what it can do, right?
Whereas Google, have you tried to Google diagnose yourself?
Oh my God,
It's the worst.
terrible.
It's the worst.
Don't do that.
I probably have, I'm the sickest person ever with this thing that I'm going through, straight to the worst possible outcome.
Ewan's got such a powerful story about the use case for the first time he used ChatGPT. What was it for my daughter? She got out of the thing.
There you go.
Right. She
You
just,
get impact like that, eh? That's what counts.
Hang on. Got to unpack this.
yeah.
Scotty, I think you bring up a really good point though with the contact center thing. If you think about what we did at Microsoft, they were very, very deliberate and judicious in the way they applied the technology, right?
Yes.
They didn't just go, oh wow, this is going to solve all their problems. They looked at the business domain.
Yeah.
They looked at the challenges within that environment, and they went, how can we apply the technology to solving some of those key problems that our agents have every day, which is why it's been so impactful, right? And I think, it's funny, I was just having this conversation in my own head this morning about, like, why do people in technology get so excited about technology for technology's sake without actually thinking through, well, what can I actually do with this thing, right? It's like when AI first came out, the whole planet's going ballistic about, we're all going to lose our jobs and this is amazing and everything. And nobody took a step back and go, hang on a minute. Like, well, what can it actually do?
Yeah.
Before I get too carried away, can this actually do the thing that I think it can do, right? And so, I think we're at this amazing tipping point, but there's still some practicalities about, the organizations that we deal with, how they're structured, how they do work, their practices, culture. There's a whole pile of things that you can't just kind of go, right, bang, employ this technology and all your problems go away, right? Change management, Matt, as you would well know, coming from delivery, and I've got a delivery background too. That's actually, in many ways, the hardest part of anything that we do from a change perspective, right? It's just that. And so, maybe we got a little bit off track here, but I back to the key things around AI and implementation and how we get this through is really just identifying, first of all, where's the problem statement, back to your points, right? Yeah. And again, I've come from a consulting background, so my first kind of instinct is always like, what is the problem we're trying to solve here, right? Before I get into any solutioning or technology or any even thinking about that, is what's the problem statement?
I think what AI can do now is changing by the week. We've just seen 4.5s come out. I think yesterday or this morning, Sam was tweeting about it and saying how he was blown away with how it was thinking and replying to him and all this kind of stuff, and how many GPUs it was consuming as well. Yeah, that was a surprising thing as well. The new Claude 3.7.
Yeah, to be honest, probably why we don't have GPT-7 right now is it GPU constraints, right? Like,
I think though, if you look at the recent developments, I'm not going to name the new model, the one the one I'm talking about, the one that managed to halve the number of CPUs required. Things like that keep on happening, right? I mean, things like that will keep on happening.
Well, mate, you can mention it. It's deep.
There you go.
Like,
So that thing, which is
still
that thing, okay. Regardless of everything that happened with that model, right? It's a breakthrough. It did something that nobody foresaw before. Because why? Because they had to do something more with less. And that will continue to do it, right? At the moment, the way that we actually, a lot of companies are doing it is just by brute force. So let's just put in more GPUs, throw in billions, just throw money at the problem. I think people will say, hey, we don't have billions, so maybe we take this shortcut. That's how innovation is made throughout history, right? And then remember in the 60s, all the cars were like, got 20,000 cylinders and 20,000 liters, and then, goes into the end of your driveway before it runs out of gas, because the Americans were on the race to make the biggest, baddest, longest car. Yeah.
Good cars.
Now look at what happened. Toyota, Honda came in with the Civics and the Corollas, and then, there's another way to do it. And technology advances forward. And then, of course, now it's got the other way with the massive SUVs, but technology just happens in unpredictable ways. And I think, right now, it's the pace of change is enough to make your head spin, but the same pattern will continue. We will see new things come up completely out of left field. How the hell did that happen? But just how. So I'm here for the ride, man. So
I'm having that conversation every day. I'm like, how the hell is it doing this? How is it doing this? Like,
Again, though, the DeepSeek thing, I think, is a great example of where again, people can get carried away with kind of the latest and greatest, right? Without, again, going into detail of what the potential flaws are in some of these things. Because again, I'm very much a pragmatist when it comes to applying the right technology to solve the right problem. Right? And I think, DeepSeek, caused a lot of waves, and then people started to kind of play with it a little bit more. Like, oh, hang on a minute, there are some flaws or there are some deficiencies in this approach, right? Doesn't mean it's not applicable to certain situations. It might be more applicable in certain situations than other models, but without knowing that, again, we can potentially run into sort of blind alleys where we just go, oh, well, again, this is the answer to all my problems, right? And I think we always got to ground ourselves as technologists to kind of go, we're advancing, the hype's kind of great, and it's good that we're doing this, but again, be practical about where we apply those things. And again, it's back to that consultative mindset.
And I think I don't know if anybody's coined this term, but I sort of call it in my own head the AI eclipse. It's that phenomenon where you actually see the results of an AI tool, and then the output is looking so good that you don't bother to check whether it's true or not. It's like the case in the US where, you have a court case and the AI completely hallucinates the precedents because the lawyer didn't bother to check if that's a real thing. There's a real danger there, right? So I'm not saying that this is something that we should be really scared of. It just shows you that there still needs to be a human element to all of this. Do not just chuck the arc wrench at a random piece of metal. You need to be able to wield it and wield it wisely, right? Because you need to be in there just to add that human element to make sure that it gets used properly. Yeah.
I think you should do a podcast on welding one day, because it seems to be the
I think so.
theme of today.
AI is not replacing it, right? It's I think if you think about DeepSeek's great, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, the Chinese innovate really, really quickly and really well, right? Like some of it, you could argue that, they do copy a lot of Western technologies. We probably copy theirs as well. So I think it's a great example of what constraints can do to drive. But I think what the Chinese have really struggled to do is win the trust in the enterprise with their technology. And when I think of AI, it's trust. The whole thing is about trust, right? The whole thing. And, I talk to a lot of customers all the time to go, imagine a world where you've got 5,000, agents all running in a customer environment. And all of a sudden, the employees that created those have all left your organization and then come back, right? Or not come back. You need to understand what they're doing and how they're doing it, particularly if you create an agent in, let's say, ChatGPT 4.0, and we've released ChatGPT 7. It's remarkably more intelligent, can do remarkably more things, and you need to understand what the agent is actually doing. So to me, trust, security, and governance are the three things moving forward that you have to win the battle on when it comes to technology.
Yeah, and I think, Scott, that's going to be, to a degree, a barrier to entry for some processes and tasks in certain environments, right? Because certainly from a financial perspective, the ability to kind of show, old school working out, as we used to do when we were kids at school, you do a maths problem and you can't just provide the answer. You got to show exactly how you came to that answer. The same thing applies in these environments. Like if you cannot explain, for example, how you made a lending decision or why you denied something or whatever it might be, or in government, potentially how you got to a diagnosis, right? Then that opens up, all sorts of potential cans of worms as a part of that, right? And so I'm not saying, by the way, those things are impossible to solve. I'm just saying that we've got to be, again, we may see resistance in certain areas to certain types of application of this technology if we cannot prove, to your point, Scott, on the trust cycle here, that how did the AI get to that answer? And it can't necessarily just be a black box where we just throw problems at it and it produces an answer without the ability to actually explain how it got to that answer. So that could be an interesting challenge that we have. And they make regulators change their minds on it.
Well, equally, I think that if I was a customer, I'd definitely be choosing platforms. I'd definitely be looking at how strong the governance in that platform is and how much control I have over these processes. And I would go single vendor. And the reason is, right, traditionally a lot of customers go on best of breed with things, right? I think we're going to be able, with natural language, we're going to accelerate the change of creation of automated processes. So I think what will happen is we'll end up with a lot more of them. And you don't want stuff running over in, here in this product or over here in that product. You definitely don't want shadow IT. You want a central place for all of your automation. So I think we're moving into the era of having a platform being able to do this stuff.
So,
I think that's
Scott, every time somebody told me that we can actually create agents from whole cloth by English, I can't believe that in the same lifetime I learned how to program in assembly. And then now we actually just creating stuff by agents. Just a final point, Scott, on that word trust, right? So when you actually mentioned that, do you realize that why people don't trust a certain AI models is because of the humans behind it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting.
There is still that element of human-to-human interaction that actually comes into play.
I wonder if there's a different trust for Grok versus ChatGPT versus.
You said it. I didn't, but I'm not going to go there. But versus
DeepSeek. Like, I wonder if the individual behind the model now is,
or the group behind the model, right? Because that colors people's judgments over how they feel. So it still comes down into the basic human emotions again, right? So
we have politicized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to make a quick observation as well. I can't help but notice every time Scott talks, your dog starts barking. Is there something? Is it like?
It's LeBron and I having a conversation, right?
Difficult question.
Podcast experience. It's been an interesting podcast of mine. I've had the dog licking my leg and jumping up at me as I'm trying to talk, barking at the neighbour's dog next door, and I've been putting myself on mute when that does happen.
You've got the dog getting a shock every time Scott speaks.
Yeah, he knows Scott. But yeah,
we'll give you. Stop moving house. That's the problem.
Yeah, I've just moved into my new place as of literally last night. So he's walking around, and we're in a big apartment complex now. So everyone's banging on the doors outside. So he's just not quite used to it.
We'll get you sorted out. But I'd just like to thank the boys for coming on. Like Iwan, Lee, I'd love for you to come back on and let's continue this conversation. Maybe we make it an annual thing because you guys are so tapped into the industries that you serve. Thanks very much for coming on. We really appreciate your feedback, and I'm sure the audience has got a lot out of it today.
Thanks, guys.
The pleasure's all yours.
A lot of fun.
And Iwan gets to listen to himself in the car next time when he's driving, listen to Powertime. So
they'll really impress my kids.
Yeah. All good.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, team. It was a really interesting conversation. So, more than happy to do this again.
To be continued.
All right. See you, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.
Have a great day, all.
Hey there, just a quick reminder, everything we share on this podcast reflects our personal opinions and not those of Microsoft or any other organisation. If you're enjoying the show, we'd be thrilled if you could hit that follow button and leave us a review. Your support means the world and helps us keep bringing you great content.